Assalamu alaikum, everyone. We are here in an emergency podcast. Mr. Trump has made us, for the first time, have an emergency podcast. We've got Monsieur Patel and myself, and we're literally just digesting this news. And the thing with the news at the moment, Mohsin, is that all these journalists are scrambling around desperately trying to figure out what's going on. But the problem is they're not investors, they're not often economists, and they're just trying to figure out what's going on. And I actually think that there's a whole bunch of winners, unexpected winners, and some unexpected losers that are going to come out of all of this. So what we're going to do in this podcast is I'll be explaining, firstly, what exactly are tariffs, and then I'll go through some of the unexpected winners and losers. And I personally think that Trump is not going to be a winner out of this. And I know you violently disagree with me, so we'll get to that in a second. But first, Donald Trump, word association.
Elon Musk.
Scumbag. Peter Hegseth.
Keir Starmer.
Boring.
Nasal.
Nasal? Who? Keir Starmer?
Yeah.
All right, interesting. Anyway, so tariffs. What are tariffs? So we have, let's say we've got a toy manufacturer in China or Cambodia, and they've been selling toys into the USA for £10 a pop. Now, what Mr. Trump has said is that, okay guys, enough of that, you're going to have to pay us an additional 30% on top of whatever you've been selling it before. So if it was £10, we're going to take at least 30% of that. So it's going to be something more like £13 or £14 in total. But it is up to the company what they do. So the company could say that actually we're not going to pass on all of this additional cost to Sally from Utah who's buying these Barbie dolls. Instead, we're just going to take less of a profit. And before we were making, let's say we made the toy for £5 and we were selling it for £10. Before we were making £5 profit. Now we're going to still sell it at £10. We're just going to make £1 profit. And Donald Trump is like, that's fine. As long as you're paying me my £4 or $4, I'm perfectly happy. So that's the idea behind tariffs. And so in my head, what I think is going to happen is you've got manufacturer, let's call him Juntao, from Rush Hour. Juntao is the arch enemy. So Juntao is there, and he's selling Barbie dolls, and he's thinking, okay, how do I was making £5 profit before, and now I'm probably not going to make very much profit here. But at the same time, he doesn't want to hike up prices so much that he prices himself out of the market, because actually then not many people will buy the Barbies anymore. So what I think is going to happen is it's going to be something in the middle. So Juntao is going to say, maybe I might just nudge up the prices by £1 or £2, and at the same time, what I'm now going to do is all of my employees, I'm going to start thinking, how can I fire these employees? And Juntao is thinking about artificial intelligence, I think, first and foremost, because a whole bunch of stuff today can be done by AI. And I think AI, this is my first point, AI is going to be the big unexpected winner, because the effect of global tariffs is that companies are going to be looking to try and reduce their costs as much as possible in any way as possible. And AI is a natural and obvious one. And I guess we're both business owners, so we're interested in how AI can help us and reduce cost. But I think that if someone overnight said to us that basically your main market where you've been selling to, you're going to have to now ramp up the prices by 50% more, and we know that that's going to kill our sales, immediately what we would start doing much more proactively is that, okay, do we actually need all of these costs, all of these employees, all of these salaries, all of these software manufacture, all of this stuff, and are there better ways to do that? So I think AI is going to be the first big winner. The second big winner, and I suspect this is where we might have a violent disagreement, is China. And the reason why I think, and you might be like, well, hang on, why would China be a winner if they've been slapped with a 50% tariff? The reason why I think China could well be a winner is because we are going through and this is a long-term winner, we are going through a 25 to 50, 75-year change of the guard, in my view, where before the USA used to be the global hegemon, and I think that's now shifting and up for grabs for the first time. And China is saying that, look guys, we're now the place of peace and prosperity and stability and just, predictability, whereas over there you've got the orange bombshell who you don't know what he's going to do next, and he's very erratic. He'll do random stuff. He's literally just upended all of international trade as it has been for the last 100 years overnight, and he's done it while standing in front of an audience and pointing at a clipboard as well, the maniac. And so I think people are going to be much more drawn to China and thinking, actually, you know what, let's just tuck in behind these guys. At least they're not going to... Because the thing is, Trump has been slapping his own allies with tariffs. So it seems that no one is really safe from this, crazy American president at the moment. So I think China's the second big winner. I think employees are going to be an unexpected loser. So people are thinking about countries and how this country is going to lose and that country is going to lose. I actually think employees are going to be the big loser. And I think governments across the world are going to be the big winners. Why do I think that? Well, the reason why I think that is because tariffs go to governments. It's a tax on consumers, and it's a tax on businesses. I mean, ultimately it's a tax on businesses, but they'll pass it on to consumers. And we've already talked about why I think employees are going to be the big losers, because they're going to get fired. But I actually think governments could be winners because they're going to put retaliatory tariffs on. And as a result of that, they're going to start getting additional taxes, which they're going to be quite happy about, actually. And this is why I think we're seeing a lot of mood music from a lot of countries saying that we're going to retaliate. And if we take a step back, the problem is that all countries are actually in the same problem the USA is in, which is the global financial crisis, COVID-19 gutted them, and they've run into massive deficits, and they now need to try and claw this back. And they just printed this money and gave it to people as stimulus, but they're now trying to claw it back. And I think these trade wars and tariffs are a great way to do that. And then the final winner that I think I have, and I don't know if you agree with me, is I actually think countries like the United Kingdom could well be major winners out of this, because everyone is focused, Trump is really laser focused on these big manufacturing countries like China and Vietnam, Cambodia, India, etc. But he's kind of quite happy with the UK at just 10%. But what could start happening is that those countries will start just circumventing the tariffs and putting everything into the United Kingdom and then sending it to the United States. A bit like what happened with all these Russian sanctions. Everyone started going via Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and all of these other countries instead. So I think UK is going to be a big win. Trump, on the other hand, I don't think he is going to be a big winner. The reason why I don't think Trump is going to be a big winner, at least in the long term, is because of what I said with China. Because like Trump's whole thing is that, we are, I'm the big bully, and, the United States is going to have a much better place in the world. I don't think he's setting himself up right to do that. That's the first thing. Second thing is he thinks that it's going to bring back manufacturing to the United States. I don't think that's going to happen, because if you've got all these retaliatory tariffs going on, and you've got a country as a whole where the money's getting sucked out from the stock market and from the lending market because everyone thinks that the United States is a bit of a basket case, that's not going to leave enough money there for Sally from Utah to actually spend on toys. Mr. Patel.
I think you're wrong. And I think the reason, the thing you're not factoring in is that the world is a very simple place. Like you've laid out a very nice argument, and it's a very cogent argument, and it probably works in, the Oxford colleges.
You're talking like Donald Trump. You've turned into Donald Trump.
This stuff is all very idealistic and
fake news.
It's all fake news. Look, what you're saying is logical. To some extent, I agree. But the thing is that China is not the US, right? And it's not as simple as saying that, China is going to become this beacon of stability, right? Where
China are legends.
All of a sudden, all these companies across the world overnight go from saying, US as like, the god of a market, and then actually they start looking east to China and saying, let's go to China. Like China has its own like crazy issues as well. So it's not, I think it's a very simplistic argument to say that China will become this, shining light that is going to win. The reality is that, me and you both know that companies across the world look to the US as a place to enter and a place to dominate, because it's still like it's the big
biggest
daddy.
market.
It's the big daddy, and big daddies over time. I can get behind the fact that sure there's like a shifting of the guard and whatever,
They can become granddaddies.
it's not going to happen anytime soon though, and the US is still the power. I think it's really quite simple, to be honest. I think that what you've got right now is Trump's done this, crazy, unprecedented thing. And he's done that in typical Trump fashion. But actually, I think that there is some logic and method to doing something like that. Because, in life, in business, in lots of different domains, when you do unreasonable things, weirdly, when the dust settles again, it has some kind of pattern or arrangement that was better than whatever was there before.
Do you reckon? I don't know. I mean, it's going to settle again, but I don't know if it's going to be better. Well, it's going to be better for some people.
It will be better for some people, and I think Trump is going to win out of it, right?
Do you think?
Yeah, because look, let me tell you how I think the next 3-4 years plays out. I think Trump, he does all this. You've got noise in the background, the retaliatory tariffs and all of that kind of stuff, but really everybody knows that they need the US. Whether they like it or not, they need the US.
Do you think, what about Coca-Cola? You've seen, the BDS movement, and it's taken a while, but pretty much all of the shops in East London these days, they don't sell Coke anymore. They've got some other kind of Coke going on. And so I've seen the shift of people actually boycotting American brands for other reasons, of course, in this case. But I could see that happening where people say, actually, you know what? We don't want to buy Levi's jeans. And there's like this social media movement where, customers are so much more footloose these days. So I reckon there could be this like other thing that actually means that people don't buy American brands anymore.
But they want to sell into the US market. That's my point, right? So if you want to sell into the US market, which I think everybody does, what's going to happen over the next 12 months is all of these countries that he slapped tariffs on are going to, one by one, they're going to come with their tail between their legs to Mr. Trump's office. Mr. Trump, please can I see you for 5 minutes, sir? And they'll say, look, we've done this retaliatory, because they have to do that, right? They're going to have to save some face. But the reality is that they'll come to that negotiating table with the weaker hand. And they're going to say, Trump's going to say to them, look, if you want to if you want to export into the US, you are going to have to lower the rate at which we export to you.
But how is that good? Because the thing is, he's come up with this idea that there's already tariffs in place.
Yeah.
But that's, you and I know that the maths that he's put on the website is basically there's a trade deficit. There's not like actual tariffs that a lot of these countries are charging to US companies.
The US does have like for example, the UK charges on US goods coming in. Like these things do already exist.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that so Trump's position will be that's fine. I'll lower this like ridiculous tariff that I've implemented, but this tariff that my companies have whenever they want to export to you needs to come down. So you're charging, I can't remember off the top of my head, but let's say the UK is like 25%, for example.
Is it?
Maybe we can check.
I don't know. I don't think we've got like mad tariffs.
Check what the tariff is to import from the US.
Tariff to import
from US.
From US to UK.
It's like duty, isn't it? That's what we pay.
The rate on a woman's t-shirt entering on the UK from the US is 12%.
Right. So let's just it'll be different for different categories of goods, right? So let's take that example. T-shirts. Yeah. T-shirts is 12%. Things like electronics might be more, for example. So Trump will go into that meeting and he'll say, look, when my companies want to export to you, you're charging me 12%. I don't want that anymore. And then he'll say, look, what's your offer? And then Keir Starmer or like whoever it is, Juntao, will say...
Juntao isn't coming to the White House.
You never know. They'll say, okay, look, we'll lower it, and we'll lower it to, 5%. So, and that's going to happen across all of these countries. Like these negotiations will happen across all these countries. So then Trump will, he'll obviously milk the hell out of it from a brand perspective. Like this is Donald Trump, the guy that wrote The Art of the Deal, the guy that says, these politicians are useless. You need a businessman in charge. You need someone that's going to do deals. And I don't think he did this in his first term.
No.
Right? He didn't really, in a very, very explicit way say, look, I'm going to do this deal. And here he is. He's lined up a series of meetings where he's going to get deals done. He's then going to go out, lots and lots of positive news flow from the US perspective, where he's going to say, look, guys, I got Keir Starmer down from 12% to 5%, right? And what that is going to mean is that our people, our companies are now much more competitive because all of a sudden you've got a whole new market that you can go to. Like before, you weren't competitive in that market. Now all of a sudden you are. And that's going to mean if there's more demand from other countries for US goods, that's going to mean more things happening in the US, more manufacturing. That's going to mean more jobs. That's going to mean more demand for the dollar, stronger dollar, stock market goes up, etc., etc. So in the end, Trump is a hero.
I've been doing some Googling whilst we've been talking, and what I've found is import duties that we've all encountered when buying and selling stuff from the UK or US, and tariffs are basically the same thing. It's and tariffs then therefore have always existed. And I was looking at the UK tariffs on US imports. They were previously, I think we've been doing some Googling, around 12%. That's about right, isn't it? I guess it depends on
12%,
yeah. So it's roughly
if you're importing into the UK from the US,
that's what you're going to have to pay.
Up to 12%, yeah. Depends on the category of the
But the thing is, the US guys, they just pass it on to us. They don't really care about us. So that's a thought. Anyway, and if we were exporting
to the US,
we still have a tariff to pay already.
6.5%.
Which is about 6.5%.
But that's gone up now to 10.
That's now gone up to 10%.
Yeah. But so obviously for the UK, they've been given the lowest.
Yeah.
So everything below 10 has now gone up to at least 10.
Yeah.
Some countries, like Cambodia, have got a 97% tariff.
Very interesting. So, to be honest, I have some sympathy for what you're saying. The thing that I'm unsure about is that the United States also controls the US dollar. And I think that's really important as part of this entire conversation. And it's probably one for another video, I think, to go into exactly what that means. Because the United States effectively has this built-in tax for all global trade, regardless of even if they are involved as a counterparty. And I think that shouldn't be discounted from all of this. And it has been.
What do you mean? Because of the dollar? Everyone trades in the dollar, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
But
there's no direct. I know what you're going to say. There's no direct tax associated with that, but because it's like a money printer, isn't it, and a forger. So if I come up with a money printing kind of forgery machine here, where I can just print lots of pounds, eventually when I print 10 billion pounds, the pound sterling is going to be worth less, and people are going to realize that there's this debasement going on of the currency. But initially, because I'm the only one who's got hold of this printing press, when I give money to you or Mars or Kabzi, it doesn't debase the currency, and so I benefit the most because I've just popped money into existence. So I'm in charge of the money printing machine, and the US government is in charge of the ultimate money printing machine. And what happens is that the countries in Africa, Cambodia, Vietnam, where they get it at 5, 6, 7 receive, at that point the dollar has adjusted and it's worth less as a result of all of the printing that happened. And so there's a real value to being in charge of the global currency supply. But anyway, I think we should unpack this properly. You look like you probably disagree with me. We'll unpack
I don't
this.
understand.
We'll unpack this properly in due course. What I wanted to talk about was practically for individuals and entrepreneurs, what should they be doing right now? And I'll kick you off with a thought, which is, I think that speed of execution and just trying out different things is actually going to be the most successful philosophy to adopt right now, because there's so much changing so quickly that it's very hard to actually keep up with it. But what's happened though is that you've created rents and tears in the fabric that weren't there before. And so what you effectively have to try and do is just pop your fingers through as many of these holes as possible and find out where the nectar is on the other side.
Yeah.
And the ones who do that more successfully and quickly will actually find the nectar. And then you start building scaffolding around it and you see what happens.
Yeah, I think that's true. But then what about the average person? So for example, we have a family business where we do actually send stuff to the US, so that practically is going to have an implication there.
Really? What do you send there?
Chocolates.
Oh, right. People buy it in USA, do they?
Surprisingly, yeah.
Interesting. What's a tariff on chocolates?
Do you know what? I don't know.
All right. Well, you carry on. I'll Google it. I'll find out.
Well, we think it's something like the 6.5%,
10,
right?
Well,
now it'll be 10.
Now it'll be 10%.
But that's the point, right? So what all that is going to mean now is that the demand will be, in theory, less.
Yeah.
Unless it's like A-level economics, price inelasticity, and all that.
Yeah.
But practically, then, for that mom and pop type business, it's not going to be very good, is it? Because the demand will go down. Their customers who are in the US are not going to be buying as much, and they're going to suffer as a result. So I think the advice would be that you need to be, if you are exposed to the US, you need to be thinking about how do you increase local demand. That might mean...
This is what I'm saying, though. This is why I think... Oh, go on, carry on.
That might mean new products. It might mean different types of advertising locally. Obviously, like you said, just trying a whole bunch of different things to decrease your dependency if you've got a big exposure to the US.
So I think, without going back into the debate, I think that, I guess we are going back into the debate, but I think that if that behavior, which I think is right, will be seen across all companies that are not in the US, then I think there's going to be just a shift away from the US. And if that happens, then I don't think people are going to be crying to Donald Trump with as much of the sadness and desperate need as I think that you might be making out.
But you're
in the long term. In the short term, maybe.
I think you're conflating, mom and pop shop versus government. The government acts in a very long term way.
Nah, the government's acting in very short term ways.
Well, they don't have the data to act on a short term basis. They're not going to come to your little small business and say, how are things getting on? are you successfully navigating away from you? Like, they're not going to do that. They're just going to see this as a political thing where they know that they're going to have to do some, diplomacy and negotiation and all that, because that's what politicians do. So they're not going to say, oh, let's hold fire and let's see how successfully UK business.
Yeah, fair enough.
They're not going to do that. So they will go to the negotiating table.
I agree. So I think that will happen. I think you're right. But what I'm saying is, the real money flows, it actually won't matter, because people are going to be like, I don't really want to be dealing with, especially if Trump is coming again in the next 4 years and he's unpredictable. I would much rather just focus on selling to France and Germany or the Middle East. They're just like predictable, reliable people. And I want to diversify away from the US. But I think when that starts happening, the US is actually the loser, because if people don't want to sell to you as much, then that's an issue. Again,
I think it's a great argument, but the reality is that it's like when the heating stops working in your house, and you're like, actually, you know what? It's not bad wearing a few layers, and I'll save a bit of money, and it's all right. But then when the guy comes around and fixes your heating, you're putting the heating back on.
Yeah.
So my point is that as soon as the government's negotiated that deal, these businesses who may successfully have gone to France and Germany and created some demand, they're going to be like, oh, thank God the US is back online. Let's go for it.
Yeah, I think that's fair for the short term, but I think for the long term, you really don't want people to be pushing away from the United States over a period of a couple of years, and then they've forged a different type of supply chain. Because what he's done is he said supply chains of the past, gone. Now come up with new supply chains. And it might be that actually it works out in favor of some companies in the US. I actually think that there's too much complexity to really predict it accurately. But I don't think that things were good, I think, overall for the US from a supply perspective. And I think they're now playing into the hands of potential others who are, I think, much faster and more agile than them. I think the China's execution compared to the USA's execution, particularly on sale of goods in particular and manufacture, has always been better. And he's picked a fight with them on that. I don't know. I feel like they're going to win.
We'll see.
On that bombshell, folks, let us know what you think. Do you agree with Mohsin? Do you agree with me? Do you think Donald Trump is going to be a winner from this, or is he going to be a loser? Let us know. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalam.